Good afternoon, Coverings. How's everybody doing? Good? Thanks for joining us. You're about to see the most exciting thing ever. Welcome to today. My name is Will. I'm with Custom Building Products. This is Greg, my associate. Thank you for coming. We're going to talk about Premix Grout technologies and the evolution of it. So this really is an exciting category. There's a lot of opportunity for evolution and improvement, and we firmly believe that this is the future of grout. So Greg, what I'd like you to do, if you could, go ahead and grout a section on that board, and we're going to start our own little clock on the screen. So in ANSI, the American National Standards Institute that governs our tile industry, right? They set all the standards for performance criteria and for installation requirements. This is what the architects use to specify materials and installation methods. So we have three previous categories for tile grout in there. The first one is the one we've known forever. That's a Portland cement grout, or a standard cement grout category. This grout's been around forever. It has Portland cement, it has polymers. Originally it was a two-part system, a liquid admixture. That evolved into a dry redispersible polymer so that the contractor only has to add water on the job, not a latex admixture. And it has pigments, iron oxide, and it has water retentive compounds to hold the water in that for the cement to properly hydrate. Okay? So here on the screen you can see this is a technical properties chart from the ANSI standard so that we know how these materials have to perform. Now this performance requirement you see is the minimum requirement of these types of grouts. So what I want to focus on right now is I want to focus on water absorption and compressive requirements. So what the water absorption alludes to is its capacity to stain or not to stain. So in a standard Portland cement grout, we can see for a standard sanded grout, you have 10% or less, less than 10% absorption potential. And for unsanded, it's 18%. That means if I were to spill something on a cured, reacted, ordinary Portland cement grout, and I wiped it up immediately, 10% of that we can expect would go into the grout and stain it. And that's the minimum standard. It is cement. It has an absorption rate, right? And then the compressive value is important as well. So a minimum of 3,000 PSI is required after 28 days so that we can guarantee ownership, Mrs. Jones, or the developer that owns this convention center or shopping mall. We can guarantee that grout will perform in the tile assembly when we have high heels hitting it, when we have rolling loads over it, any kind of stress directly on that grout. So 3,000 PSI. So some of the challenges of that ordinary Portland cement have been inconsistent color because you have to add water, because it's cement, because cement with a mixture of water always hydrates different based on the tile it's in or the ambient conditions on the job. Meaning in Florida, the same bag of grout may turn out to be a different color than it would if it were in Arizona. Because of the humidity and the temperatures, right? Then you factor in the contractor, their skill level, how much water did they add, when did they wash it, did they add too much wash water? All of those things play a role in the final color and the final performance of that ordinary Portland cement grout. Because it has Portland cement, it has the potential to create a condition called efflorescence. Efflorescence is simply soluble mineralogy that's in the ordinary Portland cement. So add the water, free up the soluble salts and mineralogy, but that solution comes to the surface, it dries and leaves that mineralogy on the surface. So concrete, brick, block, anything that uses Portland cement in the system has that potential. And then because it's cement, and while it does not require a sealer to properly hydrate, we know it has that absorption rate. So if we don't want it to stain, then we should add a sealer on top of it after it's dried to protect it from staining. And then each sealer, all sealers have different life cycle expectations. based on the chemistry of that sealer and based on how much traffic and the elements of exposure within that assembly, right? So now we know we're going to have to seal it and then maintain that sealer throughout its life cycle. So some of the standard cement grouts have been around since the beginning. You know, since the mosaics began in the Roman era, the binder was Portland cement and the grout was Portland cement. So we know we have two different versions. This is kind of important to a degree. Sanded for 1/8 to 5/8, and then unsanded or non-sanded for anything smaller. That means it has no aggregate, no sand in it. So these are low-cost solutions, right? They don't cost very much, but the expectation is very low. We know that after it's installed, it goes into service, it's not going to look the same a month later, right? So the customers aren't very happy. They're happy about the price, but they're not happy how it looks when it's in service. So to help fix some of the problems with efflorescence and color variations, we changed Portland cement to calcium aluminate cement. Calcium aluminate cement, higher cost, but relatively the same other elements in the mixture or formulation, right? So the calcium aluminate is going to dry much faster. It's exothermic, it has a heat of hydration. That's what gives a much better color distribution throughout that. And the calcium aluminate itself cannot contribute to efflorescence because it does not have the mineralogy to do so. This is a technical table from the high performance grout table, and you can see that the compressive strengths remain the same. We can see the tensile is the same, but we can see we now have flexural added to it, and that's 1,000 psi. But let's look at the water absorption here. So that went from less than 10 to 5%. And that's because a calcium aluminate system is a much denser system than a Portland cement. So it lowers the absorption. So that's a good thing because absorption is relevant to staining, right? But however, they still have challenges. Requires mixing, can stain over time. I mean, it's 5%, so it can still stain and would probably be good to seal it. Now, something else about cement grouts, in commercial applications, when we're exposing them to janitorial practices, like scrubber machines, auto scrubbers, the robotic kind that we now see running around all over the place, with the chemicals that are used there in the saturation, it slowly degrades them over time. So that's kind of a challenge or a drawback from the use of even a high performance cement grout. So introduced in the 90s to complement porcelain tiles introduction, replaces that Portland, so we don't have that efflorescence, we get better color distribution. It is a faster setting material than a Portland cement grout. It's denser, but, wow, that's weird. There we go. So that makes it a higher cost solution from Portland cement and gives a better satisfaction level, but not where we want to be. It can still stain and has, you know, its shortcomings as well. And here we are again. All right, 18.3, epoxy. This is a Cadillac of grout. This is what we all want, perfect color, perfect stain resistance, right? Also exothermic, reacts very quickly, so you're on the clock as a contractor. But we can look at the technical chart here, and you can see there's some different elements in this one as well, but the compressive has now gone up 500 psi, excuse me, and we don't see absorption at all. Why? Epoxy isn't absorptive. That's why it gives that high stain performance, and that's what we want. We want something that's not absorptive. So high chemical resistance with epoxies, some vertical sag performance when used, but is typically used in commercial kitchens because of the chemical resistancy, but has broadened in use because of its stain resistance. However, the challenges with it are the potential for allergic reaction or sensitizations. The installation is difficult. You're on the clock, it's sticky, it has a high viscosity, difficult to move around, and will always leave some type of haze, and that haze will always require some type of chemical removal. So we have chemical front end, chemical back end. So not really where we want to be But we're there because of that color and stain performance, right? So more difficult to install, but gives you that highest customer satisfaction. And that's the goal, highest customer satisfaction. Drawback, high product cost, high labor cost, and the chemical exposure. So we've created a chasm between the cement grout category and the premium epoxy category of high stain resistance and color consistency. But now we have the new premix grout category. Yay! These products have various chemistries in their formulations. Some manufacturers use one type, other manufacturers use another type. But you can see the basic chemical combinations of the majority of the category. We also have antimicrobials now. We know Mrs. Jones is always worried about the potential for microbial or biogrowth or mold, if you will. So now we know that's in the standard, and that should never be a potential for these premix grout categories. This category took over 12 years to develop because of those different chemistries. So we put an article in Tile Letter magazine kind of going into greater detail of why and who's responsible and how that development all works. So it's a very interesting article. So here we can see some of the differences between a premix grout and the epoxy and standard grout categories. So differences there. But the premix grout was introduced in 2012. That is 12 years ago. We've had premix grout now for 12 years. They have no cement. That's a good thing. They have no epoxy or harsh chemicals. That's a good thing. They cannot contribute to efflorescence. That is a good thing. They are absolutely color consistent from one side of the country to the other. They are not affected by temperature or relative humidity. These also don't require a sealer, so they give you that best stain resistance possible. And that's really what we want. We've got these beautiful porcelain tiles that the customer picks out, that we install and sell. And then the second thing they'll see is the grout. So we should have a tile that won't stain like porcelain, and then we should have a grout that won't stain like porcelain. It should really be very, very simple. But now we have a product that will give us that high customer satisfaction, that's easier to install than epoxy, and hits that mid-range price point. Okay? So really, in the end, when we factor all the benefits of it, even though we're paying a little more to use this product, it's going to bring our cost or overall cost down because we have happy customers, we don't have callbacks, we don't have repairs, right? We can install it and move on to the next job, and our owners are happy, and it's over, like it should be. So how do we know which grout goes where, which tile goes where? Well, we use the ASTM C627 Robinson floor testing machine. It has multiple cycles, and as it progresses from one cycle, the wheels move up in rigidity, ultimately into steel, and we have a numerous amount of cycles, and they have weight loads, as you can see, that go over it, which also increase. So we know the stresses would be at a low level, like a residential application, and then as we add more weight and change the wheels, move all the way through extra heavy. And so we've created these categories, and we've created the facility types that would be included in those categories. So now we know which grout, which tile, what type of assembly has passed these tests and should work just fine in these different types of facilities. So where can the new second generation Prism SCG, single component grout, where can it be used? Well, we know it can be used in residential. We also know it can be used in moderate or light to moderate commercial, but we also know it can be used in heavy applications. Where we don't recommend the second generation materials is in submerged applications. We will get that in the third generation. That's the evolution of the category. We haven't found a ceiling yet. We will continue down that road. The next generation will get submerged. And then ultimately, the following generation, we'll get that high chemical resistance, and we'll be able to take epoxy out of play. So we're going after cement and epoxy, and ultimately everything will be pre-mixed out of a bucket to make it easy as it should be, right? So all these facilities that we do today, Prism SCG can be used for right now, interior, exterior, And with the labor challenges, that's going to be very helpful as well. So you can see here, these are the performance requirements charts out of ANSI for the premix grout category. And we can see that the PSI for compressive is different than cement or epoxy. It's much lower, from 3,000 to 1,000, right? Well, here's the good news. We know that Prism SCG will exceed 4,000 PSI after 28 days. And you can see the incremental strength gain right here on this chart. So cement 3,000, epoxy 3,500, Prism SCG exceeds the minimum requirement for epoxy, right? So we're very confident that we can use it in all those areas. Now, in 2012 when we launched this, it was a great idea. Color consistent, pre-mixed, stain resistant. Architects, owners, love it. Let's specify it. Let's get it in on our project. The problem was, when the contractors went to use it, it was difficult to use. Now this slide shows you some typical results of using that first generation premix grout. Very challenging because it required the contractors to grout and clean right away. Very short working time. Even more difficult than using epoxy in most cases. Now these are excerpts from current technical data sheet instructions for the first gen category. And if you look here, there's another one that says 2 to 10 square feet. Can you imagine telling the contractor, you can only grout 2 to 10 square feet, then you have to clean it up. So that changes the way they grout. That means they have to add another person. That means their costs go up. It makes it difficult for them. They don't want to use it. So we lose all those wonderful attributes of color consistent and stain resistance to get it to our owners and give them that satisfaction that they deserve, right? That we should give them. But now we can't because it's too difficult for the contractors to use. So at Custom Building Products, we decided that the second generation should be able to tackle that problem and take it off the table and make it easy for the contractors to use it so we can move that back into play. So there's articles about the labor shortages. We all know it's a challenge in our industry, less experience out there. So a product like Prism SCG is going to help that element. They don't have to mix anything. They don't have to mix 2-part epoxy and hurry up. So all they have to do is pull it out of the bucket. They don't worry about color. Spread it like you would cement grout. Clean it, tool it, done, the way it should be. So the idea is to move from that first generation up to the second generation, extend that working and cleaning time to the equivalent of a cement grout, right? And now we're able to reduce that wait time for intermittent water exposure, specifically shower applications, which in the first gen category, that's using technology that's 14 years old. Does anybody have a cell phone that's 10 or 14 years old? Now we can move and open those showers up in 3 days instead of 7. 7 days is prohibitive in a builder scenario. Now it's not. 3 days works perfectly in that timeline. We can open up to light traffic in 24, and we can open it up to full service also in 3 days for commercial applications. So 1 gallon unit, 2 per case, 2-year shelf life. You can even top grout existing grout instead of doing a grout coloring. So we'll show that in a minute on the screen. Easily repair trade damage for the same reason. With cements and epoxies, it's difficult to repair that. And then we can open those showers, and we've got that extended cleaning time. So we get all these performance elements that we want. The contractor can install it easily. We have all the 40 colors, and we've pushed this out late last year, and all of the contractors that are using this love it. It really works. So we're not trying to sell it. We're just trying to tell everybody about it, because once it goes into use, it does perform to all those expectations. And because of that, now we can get the ownership, developers, architects to begin to specify this again. And then we get the contractors to use it because they can easily use it like they do cement grout. And we can get that cycle going, and we can increase that customer satisfaction and make it simple for the grout to be installed. So now, if you would, go to the camera, and we've installed some grout here. We installed some early, we installed some later, and he just recently installed some. So some of the benefits of this second gen material is I can install and clean right away. Why would that be valuable? Because I cannot do that with cement or epoxy. I can install and clean a backsplash right away. That helps. I can install and clean a shower surround right away. That helps. So what if I'm going to install the bedroom or I'm going to install the lobby? Can I wait longer? Absolutely. So I can grout small, I can grout medium, and I can grout large. You can't do that with any other type of grout. So we've not only made it easier for the contractor to install it, but now they can use it in any way that they see fit, that works conducively to their application. So as you can see, Greg's going to clean this up, and it's going to clean up perfectly easily, right? Here's the other benefit, no harsh chemicals. The other benefit, if I get a grout haze, which you will on larger jobs, that's normal. The next day, the first gen is virtually impossible to clean. First generation premix would require a chemical cleanup the next day or thereafter. With this second gen Prism SCG, no chemical cleanup required, only water. That's it. So now we're moved away from harsh chemicals, away from harsh chemical cleanups, and now we're just using water. And Mrs. Jones certainly is happy about that. She won't get mold, and there's no harsh chemicals in her house at the front end or at the back end to clean it up. Now, I want to show you this panel, and while I show you this, I'm going to pour some coffee just to show everybody, yes, it is stain resistant. And on this panel, I don't know if you can see it, kind of move it over here. Here you have the darker color is the original grout. The lighter color is a top grout. And in that joint depth is only about a 32nd of an inch. So because it's adhesive properties, we can use it to re-grout. We can put it over cement grout, we can put it over epoxy grout. All we need is that small 32nd of an inch. And now we have new grout. And I assure you, doing a top grout is much easier to do than a color stain, 100%. Color stain was our previous solution. It's not now. This is much easier and gives much better performance as well, because a color seal can also degrade and require some maintenance. If you top grout with the Prism SCG, it won't degrade and it never requires a sealer. So excellent. If I have trade damage because of those adhesive properties, a quick sponge wipe, fill it, sponge wipe, done. As soon as it dries, it'll match a color perfectly. That's a huge advantage in commercial work and even a bigger advantage in builder work. And imagine, with that 2-year shelf life and even more if it's properly sealed, we can leave that behind under Mrs. Jones' sink. And if she has a problem later, she can simply go to our website, look at the instructions, and she can repair it herself within minutes. And I'm sure she would appreciate it. I know I would. I don't want to have to call somebody and schedule and then bring them back into my house. I'd rather just do it myself. That is a huge advantage as well. And that helps your builders as well. Customer satisfaction goes up. Everybody's happier. The production increases. That's why those overall costs go down. So the last thing I want to show is if you can see the staining here of the coffee. Kind of move that right there. And Greg, if you would, go ahead and just show them it actually works. And voila. And again, if you're interested, we encourage that you try this yourself, right? One of the other benefits, because it's adhesive, because of its flexural capacity, this is Luan with LVP, resilient flooring application. It's groutable for it, and it can still stay in the joint with some moderate deflection. So very flexible. Another benefit to the product. So grout small, grout large, no sealer required. I can top grout, I can make topical trade damage repairs, and I never have to worry about the color, never have to worry about it staining. So, you have any questions from anybody? Yes? You're going to have to yell like your mom tells you not to do. You can do it. I'm telling you, it's okay. Oh, if I put water in it, will it make it more sparkly? Is that what you're asking? It will make it glisten while it's wet, and then when it dries, that goes away. But it's a good question. We are planning to launch a designer series so that when you open the bucket, it already has the sparklies in it. And that's what we should put in your room. Good question. Very good question. What's that? Do we have different colors? Good question. We have 40 colors, and they all match our caulks and our silicone sealants. So, complementary. Yes? Yep. This is much easier, and that's what we focus on. So the question was, I was a big user of the first gen product, Fusion Pro. That was ours. And it was difficult to work with, difficult to clean. Is this much easier? Absolutely. We did not have the technology available for Fusion Pro. The first gen as a collective category, you have to pull the technology off the shelf, if you will, 10 years ago, right? So we realized we made it as good as we could. It had a lot of opportunity, but we had limitations of that chemistry. We spent the last 8 years just creating our own because it's not available out there. So we said, hey, this is our goal. We're going to keep it stain resistant. You know, it won't stain, going to keep it color consistent, but we need to make it much easier. We're going to have to create our own raw materials to do this. And that's what we did. And that's why we're very happy to tell everybody about it, because you're absolutely right. Great idea, but the product was too hard to work with. And now it's not. Good question. Yes, sir. Walk on time, light foot traffic the next day, full service 72 hours, 3 days. So if we're doing a commercial application, you can open the doors 3 days later. Good question. Yes. What's that? Excellent question. Can I use it in a steam shower? Our answer is not this generation. So no steam showers because of the condensate and the vapor. No submersion, but in Gen 3, we're after that. We expect to get that. Yeah. Backsplash. Okay. Okay, what, won't stain, won't scratch? Okay, good question. So the question was, if I'm doing a backsplash with metals, quartzite, stone, glass, will it stain it? Will it scratch it? And the answer is, we put a finer aggregate in it. If those materials meet their respective standards, right, probably won't. I have to say probably because some materials can scratch, but we haven't had any complaints. The simple answer to that is just do a quick little test. Pull a piece out of the box or in the showroom, do a little test, and here's the cool part. Because you can grout small right away, you can grout it, clean it off right away, and you can see what it's really going to look like. Good question. Yes? Color from wet to dry. I'm cut off? Oh, okay, I thought I got cut off. I was waiting for the hook. Does it change color from wet to dry? Yes, it does. It dries a little bit differently because so as soon as the moisture evaporates, it's going to change colors just a minor shade. But you can count on the color chart. It'll hit that color chart perfectly. Excellent question. Yes. Shelf life, 2 years unopened. However, I have material in my garage at home that is 7 years old and is still good. So properly stored, can last well beyond that 2-year shelf life. And if it didn't, I could go down to my local distributor, buy another one, and probably repair my old grout, and it should be very close, if not perfect, in color. Good stuff. Yeah.
So when you're regrouting, are you scratching off that 30
No, I am not. I am not. I am not scratching off that grout to regrout. If I have full joints and absolutely no room, then I'm unfortunately probably going to color stain, and I'm going to be kicking myself. Yeah. I can't, you know, for me, it's you have to answer that based on the job. But very good question. Such a good question from both you guys. You should come by our booth right over here booth number 7305, and we can do a little personalized demo and answer more questions for you and let you guys test drive it for yourself. So I want to thank you all. My time has ended a long time ago, I believe, but I appreciate you guys, and thank you, Greg. We appreciate you, and you guys have an excellent show.